And we are back. The actual start of part two here. We're going to get cracking with the Cabo Bum himself, whose team is, I believe this is him right in front of us here. Yeah, let's get it up here. All right, Chris, number six, midway through, we got Dak Prescott, Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, Traylon Burks, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Dallas Goddard, Adam Troutman, Isaiah Pacheco, Jahan Dotson, and Jared Goff. Obviously, Nick Chubb stands out here as his season is all but over. Guys on the bench, Cam Akers, man, what a weird situation. I can't even begin to figure out what's going on there. It seems like kind of a repeat of last year, although I don't think we're going to get you know, the the second act like we did at the end of last year coming up this year. I think his days are done with the Rams. We've got Robert Woods, who's been more than serviceable sitting here, Curtis Samuel, and Reed as well, the wideout for the Packers. Taxi squad is nothing. Deuce Vaughn, I will still call him nothing. Picture intact going forward. Oh man, Chris, quarterback situation I like. I like Dak. I like Jared Goff. I think those guys are going to be fine. Obviously, Nick Chubb is going to be a massive, massive hole in this lineup, but I think the wide receiver situation is fine. I do like Dallas Goddard. Pacheco, I think, is going to right the ship. Jahan Dotson. I think better days are ahead for this team, Chris, is I guess what I'm trying to get at. I don't think it's all gloom and doom. Um, What's going to ultimately stink, though, Chris, I think he's going to be caught here dead in the middle because this isn't a team that you want to rebuild with. He's never going to bottom out with this team. And I also don't think he's going to be a semifinalist with this team either. So it could just kind of sit in the middle, which is where you don't want to be. I also don't really see selling as being an option either. So we're kind of tied here.
Yeah, it's in a very tough spot. This team's in a very, very tough spot. Obviously, losing Chubb is a killer. You know, we can, man, the Akers thing is also bizarre. I wonder if they can find a trade partner, get him somewhere where he can get some touches. He's obviously talented. I mean, he produces when he's in there. Um, so hopefully we can find something there. I think Curtis Samuel, maybe even Jaden Reed both deserve spots in the lineup. Dalton Schultz in there. I think you can reliably plug him in that format. So, I mean, it's solid but unspectacular lineup. I think throughout is how I would describe it. And yeah, I mean that kind of puts him square in the middle, which again, like you said, is a really really tough spot. I think there are guys to sell if you want to go that route. I think Pacheco can still fetch, a decent price. The quarterbacks obviously, should fetch a very good price. Calvin Ridley, despite his two catches last game, I think it still fetch a good price. I think you can get return back on these guys. And with the Chubb injury, I'm just not sure what good playing out the rest of this season with this roster will do you. Maybe you squeak into the playoffs, but I just don't see how they have the upside of beating anybody in the playoffs. So if that's the case, I'm looking to sell here, and I kind of want to hit the reset button with this thing entirely.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, sure, but uh, I mean, what are you hoping for here? Get a first for Calvin Ridley, get a first for Dallas Goddard in this format, and
Yeah.
then seconds galore. I mean, there's a chance Nick Chubb's career is over. Uh, I mean, it's just a really really tough spot for this team. This is the kind of spot you just don't really ever want to end up in, and he's square in this spot. I don't know what to do. I mean, there's just no moves to make. I think you are just your hands are tied with this group, and you just kind of ride it out and hope that Dalvin Cook takes on a huge role. Hope that you're able to fill that Nick Chubb hole. But I mean, you got Adam Troutman in this lineup. I mean, you're just going to need miraculous play from your quarterbacks and these receivers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you don't want to be in this spot, but I think you've got to try to get out of it, try and dig your way out of it. I'd wait, 2 more weeks. I mean, listen, yeah, if you can sell anybody now for first, you do it, including the quarterback positions. That's my opinion here because I'm with you. I think Nick Chubb's career is definitely in jeopardy right now. And if you look at this thing, who are the long-term building blocks? Is really, really not any. Treylon Burks is not fired. Everybody else is kind of, I don't want to say old, but probably kind of in the second half of their career, right? I mean, I'd hang on to Deontay Johnson, I guess. And really, that's about it. And I'd start going after picks and hitting the reset button on this thing. I think you could get maybe 2 seconds for Pacheco. I think you can get a first for Ridley. I think you can get probably 2 seconds for Tyler Lockett, who continues to produce. And Goff and Dak, I think, are the two pieces that are going to bring back the most return that can, give you a jump start on rebuilding this thing.
All right, Chris, let's move it on. Let's check out our number 5 team. This is another one. He was number 3 after week 1, and I ended up marking him down to 5. Let's see where he ended up. So he's at number 6 right now. So I think I got this one right. J Maya 1 here sitting at number 5. We've got Mac Jones, who's producing so far, Chris, far beyond anything I think we expected from him. Kenneth Walker, Alexander Madison struggled mightily this week. Justin Jefferson just getting going. Jamar Chase underachieving is an understatement. Mike Williams, Tyler Higbee, Zay Jones. I've got Zach Moss, who's filling in valiantly here for Jonathan Taylor, Elijah Moore, and Baker Mayfield, who has been outstanding. So you look at these quarterbacks, you don't love this situation, but Chris, they're getting the job done. Both of these guys put up very solid weeks in the first 2 weeks. Nothing really after that, right? We've got Hollywood Brown sitting on the bench, which is a guy you could put in. Chase Claypool caught a touchdown. That's nice to see. Kadarius Toney still going to get work in a very good offense. Noah Fant, wow. Didn't see that. I didn't really see that from him this week. So, 456 yards. Trey McBride, never going to take over the Zach Ertz role. Bank on that. On the bench here, we've got Kyler Murray. Taxi squad is barren as well. Picks are intact. Extra third kicking going forward. This is my number 5 team here, Chris. I just don't think he'd get much worse for this team, right, man? I mean, as long as Burrow is going to be healthy, Chase has got to get the ball rolling. There's some holes, but this is another tough eval for me. But listen, any lineup that has Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase in it, I think is going to have a chance in this league. And it's not like awful around it. So I ended up at 5th here. He probably deserves maybe to be a little bit lower, but we haven't exactly seen great talent below this.
No, I agree. Listen, I mean, if this team is going to get top 15 quarterback play from Mac Jones and Baker Mayfield all season, he's going to be right there, because his position players are really, really solid here, almost top to bottom, especially with Zach Moss here filling in for Jonathan Taylor. Now, I don't know how long that's going to last, maybe only a couple weeks, but we can figure it out after that. The running back game is so tough to play week in, week out. And we can always flex in somebody down the line here if we have to. And we can figure that out, I think. So I'm not too worried. I mean, that's basically our last flex spot. I think everything else looks pretty solid on this team. This is another team here that on the surface looks like maybe you could be a buyer, but you'd have to really, really believe in Baker Mayfield and Mac Jones keeping this up in order to become a buyer. So, and I'm not ready to do that after 2 weeks. So, I mean, I would wait another 3-4 weeks, see how my quarterbacks are producing, and then if I feel the need to go out and buy a position player, I'll go do it. It's not a sell by any means. At any point, really, I think you just ride this thing out, see how it looks as we get closer to the playoffs and it looks like things are going your way, then maybe you become a buyer for that final stretch. But otherwise, I think you just sit tight with this team.
Yeah, you're gonna have to, man. I wish this thing was a little bit deeper. Somehow JP Ryan's a guy I probably should have mentioned as well, but he's just not giving us what we were hoping for out there in Denver. Just kind of a weird situation. It seems like Hollywood Brown obviously gonna be thrust into this lineup very, very quickly. Oh man, I just wish there was something that made us feel a little bit better, Chris. Again, just an aging vet I'd love to see on this team. We can't sell, right? Because the only two pieces that are going to bring back a ton are Jefferson and Chase. This lineup plays a little bit deep, so you're not probably going to get as much of a return in terms of quantity that you'd like to for those guys. So I think we got to ride out this big five of Walker, Madison, Jefferson, Chase, and Mike Williams. Higbee's going to be fine in this format as well. Hope the quarterbacks stay hot and then just kind of ride it out because, like I was saying, none of these other guys are going to bring you back anything. Maybe you look into moving Kenneth Walker, but listen, you're here, you're in the top 6 right now. You might as well just keep going with it and then maybe reevaluate in 10 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's really the only play. I don't feel good about doing any sort of 1 for 2 type deals. I don't think that's a play here because it's really no matter what you do here, it's not going to upgrade your weakest spots, which is basically quarterback. If these guys eventually come back down to earth, but they may not. They may just have a hot season in them. And hey, let's see if we can get to the playoffs.
Anything's possible when you're throwing to Mike Evans, Chris. We know this.
It's true.
All right, let's get to our number 4 team. Currently at number 7, we got Barber D. I like this team a lot, Chris. I've got him at 4. We've got Deshaun Watson, James Conner, Brian Robinson, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Mike Thomas, Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews. We've got Hodgins, who caught a touchdown pass. Odell Beckham, who's a little dinged up. And we got Danny Dimes, who lit everything up this week. We've got Desmond Ritter sitting here on the bench. We've got Kenny Gainwell. We'll see what happens with that situation as things start to unfold. Amari Cooper was possibly going to be out, ended up on the bench for this team. You're obviously going to put him in the lineup for Isaiah Hodgins going forward or Odell Beckham. Chris, this is a complete lineup. I will say the top 4 was very, very tight for me. I was very confident that these teams needed to be in the top 4. I think we've taken a gigantic step forward. We've got nothing on taxi or IR. Picks are intact going forward. No second, actually. Excuse me. Chris, I like this team a whole lot. It's aging. I'd love to see this team add one more piece and really, really make a push for a title.
I like this team a lot as well, Matt. It's kind of strange, but my one concern with this team is maybe not what you'd expect. I am extremely concerned about Deshaun Watson. Um, I texted you about it at about 10 minutes into the Cleveland Browns game week 1. I said Deshaun Watson is toast. He looks awful. And he showed it last night, in the stat line. I mean, Pittsburgh ate him up. He had the numbers week 1, the fantasy numbers, but I mean, it showed last night. I mean, he just looks awful, and I am petrified of starting him week in, week out for the rest of the season. It's just not a guy I want to be tied to right now. I would do my best to try and pivot off of him to somebody who still believes. But I am completely out on Deshaun Watson, and that would be the move I would make with this team is trying to pivot off of him, and just kind of seeing what else I can get. I want somebody who's going to produce consistently, and I don't think he's going to this year. So that's sort of my one concern with this team, but that's just sort of a personal take. I don't know, how many people agree with that, but he's just a guy I'm out on, and that would be my move with this team is trying to get off of him.
Deshaun Watson or Kirk Cousins?
Oh, I would take Cousins 100 times out of 100.
Deshaun Watson or Derek Carr?
Oh, that's close just because Carr looks about as awful as Watson. But so I'd still go Watson there.
All right, last one, and this might be the toughest one. Deshaun Watson or Brock Purdy?
I think I go Purdy. I go Purdy.
Jeez, wow.
I just think you're going to get more consistent numbers out of Purdy. I think I don't think the theoretical ceiling is as high for Purdy, but I'm telling you, man, Watson looks awful.
It was nice at the beginning of the offseason. We were able to stay out of the trap because the trap was obvious, right? People were taking him with a top 24 pick almost consistently in every single draft that we did. But geez, I fell victim as the offseason wore on and he's dropping to late 3rd, even early 4th. And I'm like, this is ridiculous value. And I ended up grabbing him in a couple of leagues here towards the end. And I mean, honestly, I'm going to be looking through lineups tonight. And if I can get a Derek Carr into the lineup this weekend, I'm going to. I'm not going to actively try to make that trade. But if I can make that swap in a lineup, I'm probably going to.
It's worth a thought. I mean, I would just, I don't, that's the point, right? Is that Watson, I don't think is the automatic start that he looked like on paper as short as 2 weeks ago. So I think that's kind of the more rational take is, hey, maybe he's a matchup play more than anything.
All right, Chris, we're going to move on to our top three. At number three, I've got Barry, 587, bow to forever bad. He's currently sitting in eighth with a 2-2 record. I've got him as my third best team. Let's take a look. We've got Mahomes. We've got Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Amon-Ra, Christian Kirk, Juju, Evan Ingram, Rashad Penny, Cole Kmet, Adam Thielen, and Trevor Lawrence. Guys on the bench worth a mention. Not a whole lot really at all. We've got Jacoby Myers. We've got Alan Lazard, maybe worth a mention as well. Taxi squad is nothing. No picks at all going forward. Man, Chris, I just look at Patrick Mahomes, who was fine last week, and I look at Trevor Lawrence, who was awful this past week. They're going to carry this team. And then I look at Derrick Henry, who's going to improve, right? I mean, 25, 80, and 1 is good. Certainly no question about that. Josh Jacobs ran for -2 yards this week, Chris, and still managed to get 13 points. I just think the arrow is pointing up for a few of these guys. I think Juju is going to improve as well. Evan Ingram, another guy I think is going to improve. Yeah, we've got some holes, right? Penny and Kmet in this lineup, but I think we'll be able to find some pieces. We got Matt Breida coming into this lineup for the next few weeks. Jacoby Myers, once he comes back, I think it's going to look a little bit better, Chris. Basically, I'm resting my laurels on these quarterbacks. This is another guy that you could say, hey, maybe he deserves to be a little bit lower, but I'm not moving him any more than like 2 spots if you're really going to argue with me.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue with you here. I think it's very fortuitous here to have Matt Breida on this bench. I think just when this team needs to kind of right the ship a little bit, and just kind of maybe win the next 2, 3 weeks to get himself in a more favorable record, is the perfect time to throw Matt Breida in this lineup. Rashad Penny doesn't deserve a spot, and all of a sudden the lineup looks a whole lot better. Just by making that simple swap. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think we've got some underachieving players here that I think are due to probably explode. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs. I mean, Mahomes and Amon-Ra St. Brown have played great. Christian Kirk had a great week. I think I'm with you here. I think this is a team that's just sort of bubbling right now, bubbling at the surface, just waiting to kind of explode and have that monster week. And I think that could happen in the next few and justify his ranking here. I think long term we're going to need a better solution than Matt Breida. We probably need 1 to 2 more pieces on this team. We don't have anything to work with, unfortunately. It's a problem. So, unless you're willing to do a 1-for-2 kind of thing, and I'm not sure I want to do that, but I would at least explore it if I can get decent value, for a guy. Gosh, I mean, listen, I would always entertain trading Mahomes, dropping down a tier and getting an extra piece just because his value is always so high and the return can be incredible if you can do it. So I would just toss that around a little bit. Maybe I can fill those holes without losing too much production, and kind of see what's going on out there in trade land.
We haven't seen a either of these two guys that I'm about to mention, Chris. So this trade is never going to happen. It's purely hypothetical. But these two names popped into my head. For this team, if it could be possible, would you rather have Patrick Mahomes or would you trade him for Justin Fields and Keenan Allen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the type of deal that I would be looking for. I'd probably still stay with Mahomes just based on Fields just kind of looking like crap too. But that's sort of the range I would be looking for. Yes, I think that's a reasonable offer.
All right, it's time for our top 2 teams, Chris. And they're currently sitting at 3-4, 4-3. Let's go with our number 2 team first. We're gonna go Dipitom here. Dipitom at number 2, which means we got Borgier at number 1. We've got Jalen Hurts, we've got Brees Hall, Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, Travis Kelce, AJ Dillon, Zay Flowers, Brandon Ayuk, and Josh Allen sitting at Superflex. Guys on the bench, we got Geno Smith, Gus the Bus, Antonio Gibson, Rashad White, Jordan Addison, Sky Moore scored a touchdown this week as well. We've got Mims. Boy, he caught a touchdown or two this week. It was just one, two touchdowns this week. Who else? Juwan Johnson, Gerald Everett, Sam Laporta, Dawson Knox, Wandale on IR, Luke Schoonmaker, maybe worth a mention, Will Mallory as well. He's got two extra firsts in tow, which is wild for this team to be so high as well. I love this team here, Chris. This was a really tough decision for me at 1 and 2. I actually swapped them at some point during my ranking, and I ended up going Dipitom at 2. You know, he's going to take this hit with Barkley being gone, but he's got enough bench pieces to really to the point where he's not going to feel this a whole lot. It's a very good team, man. I mean, his quarterback situation is second to none. Very, very good. So I think we've got a locked in finalist right here with this team.
Yeah, great team here, Matt. This is a team. I'm going knocking at the McCaffrey owner's door. We saw him further down in the first show. I'm going to go try and figure out how the heck I can get Christian McCaffrey on this team, whether it's some combination of picks or Jordan Addison or Zay Flowers or Quentin Johnston, some sort of package that I can make work because I'm going after it. And I think that's the biggest potential game breaker here to get me a title. That's the move I'm making. No brainer. I'm going to figure out a way to get Christian McCaffrey on this team using the young guys and the picks I have. I've got the depth to afford just about anything. Yeah, I mean that's the no brainer move. We need game breakers here on this team to crack this lineup and kind of stabilize ourselves and announce ourselves as the number one contender.
Yeah, Chris, I'm so the two picks that he has that are not his, Ja 817 and Steel Texan, we have as being top 3 picks, according to our rankings. So I think what I'm doing is this. I'm going to that Christian McCaffrey owner and I'm starting with my own 2021st. And I'm saying, is that enough? No. Okay, here's what I'm willing to add. All right, Sam Laporta on top. Is that enough? No. Okay, I'll add Quentin Johnston as well. Is that enough? No. Okay, now I will consider adding. I'd probably still throw in Jordan Addison. So we could go a first, Laporta, Quentin Johnson, and Jordan Addison. That's a wild overpay, but I think I'd do something along those lines. I got to believe the first 3 get it done. A late first, maybe Addison instead of Quentin Johnston and Laporta. With this format, with the double PPR, I think that's got to be in the ballpark.
I think it's got to be in the ballpark as well. Yeah, I mean, whether if you like McCaffrey, that's the guy to go after. If you don't like McCaffrey, which who doesn't like McCaffrey, find some other star-studded player that you can add for the depth and picks that you have. I mean, it's just a no-brainer move for this team. They're rookies here, Addison and Flowers. Ayuk's got an injury to deal with. You may not get the consistent production out of those 3 that you can get out of an absolute stud, locked in stud like McCaffrey or somebody like that. So those would be the guys I'd be targeting with my picks and players. It's just a no brainer here to add them and make a run at the title with this thing. I mean, you've got guys producing at a high level. Keenan Allen, Saquon, obviously at the injured list. Quarterbacks are set. We've got the hammer and Travis Kelce. It's just a no brainer here to go after another stud.
Have to. Maybe even consider 2. I mean, if somebody wants to talk to me about acquiring one of these top 3 picks, we know quarterbacks are guys you want to come after. Hey, show me a stud for one of these top 3 picks, or projected top 3 picks. So, we're not guaranteeing it here. But I think that's got to get it done, man. A lot of excitement here for Dipitom, as this is a team that's definitely headed for the title, or at least a title game. All right, let's talk about our number 1 team here, Chris Borgier. Correct me if I'm wrong. See if you agree with what I have here. We got Justin Fields. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, TJ Hawkinson, DJ Moore, Puka Nacua, Hayden Hurst, and Russell Wilson. Guys on the bench, we've got Bryce Young. We've got Damian Pierce. We've got Justice Hill. We have Jameson Williams coming back from that suspension in a few weeks. Michael Mayer, Zach Ertz as well. Taxi squad's pretty empty. No one worth a mention. No first as well. It's close here, Chris. Like I said, I went back and forth. I love the makeup of this team, man. Look how young this is. I mean, look at these wide receivers, right? Lamb, Waddle, Olave, DJ Moore, Puka Nakua. Then we've got two baby running backs as well. Sounds like this was a rebuild that went really quickly and really well for this team. Because it's in really, really good shape. I think if Russell Wilson, though he's a horrendous real life quarterback, can start being just this fantasy monger, I think this team's going to be in good shape. We got to get more for Justin Fields, right? I mean, this is just not cutting it. But I think he's going to be fine. And Puka Nakua, baby, that's all.
Matt, with this team, I see Bryce Young here on the bench. Would you go after and I believe Kirk Cousins was on one of our lower ranked teams as well. Would you go after a guy like Cousins for Bryce Young?
No, I wouldn't, Chris, only because the rest of this team is so young. I'm
Okay.
almost excited for when Russell Wilson retires and I can put in a locked in heading into his prime Bryce Young.
Yeah, I think it was just sort of that was just sort of a thought that popped into my head. And you're right here. The rest of the team is so young. It doesn't really fit to add a guy like Cousins. You've got the Russell Wilson already bridging the gap, and I think he's doing fine so far. I mean, I think if I was ranking this, our rankings would be flip flopped. I would have put that last team at one, this team at two. But that said, this team, the upside on this team is just it's massive, right? With all these young guys who are have major roles within their respective offenses. They're already putting up a ton of fantasy points. I mean, we're stocked everywhere. I mean, it's a really, really good team. I think the runway for this team to, land a title is about 5 years. I think he's got, a good 5 year window here with this team where he can, potentially win multiple titles, especially as the team you had ranked number two starts to age out a little bit. So, I mean, it's just a really, really fantastic build, fantastic team, great depth as well. There's really nothing bad I could say about this team.
And listen, he's going to wise up a little bit in week 3 here and get Zach Ertz thrust into this lineup, get Hayden Hurst out of there. Although Hayden Hurst was fine week 1. But I'd love to see Zach Ertz in here. I mean, in this format where you're getting 2 points for the catch for those tight ends, he's getting peppered. Jameson Williams is going to be coming back at some point. The depth is good enough here. Look at Tank Dell caught a touchdown this week, 10 targets as well. My goodness. So Damian Pierce, a guy that's kind of underperformed so far, but I think he's going to be able to give you solid numbers all year long. Roshan Johnson, that's your guy. Um, I mean, if Bryce Young is that third piece, Chris, and it's possible because right, you're not giving up Russell Wilson. I wonder, can we still get a young quarterback back for Bryce Young? Who's somebody that's like in the I don't know, 26, 27-year-old range, not elite. Um,
There really isn't anyone. That's sort of the problem. The young guys are good enough where you take them, you know, ahead of Bryce Young, and everybody behind him is sort of older. It's Cousins, it's Stafford, it's Carr,
Garoppolo, yeah.
Garoppolo, it's Dak. It's just kind of a tough spot.
I don't know. I was gonna say Dak, but you don't want to have Dak sitting there on your bench. Although he's a guy you might throw in right away for Russell Wilson. But Wilson's been fine. I don't know. I was kind of hoping, Chris, that we can still add a young-ish quarterback and add a piece. I wonder maybe if it is Brock Purdy, you take kind of a flyer on him that he's going to be something going forward. Because I think you can add a startable piece on top of Brock Purdy in order to get to Bryce Young at this stage in the game. That could change, obviously, as Brock continues to lock in that position and really do well for the Niners. But it's a good team. I can see why you'd flip flop him, Chris. The Boo Birds may be out for the rankings this time, but I don't know. I think it's fine. I mean, the points I think speak to themselves. And, we're looking at guys, couple that, kind of played out of their minds the first couple of weeks, but we've also got Justin Fields, who hasn't gotten going. Jahmyr Gibbs, who may be in the driver's seat now with David Montgomery, going to set to miss a little bit of time. CeeDee Lamb was good week 2, not great week 1. Jalen Waddle's been okay. I mean, I think there's room to improve with this team, and he's already the top scorer.
Yeah, I mean, there's an undeniable amount of young talent on this team. I mean, no doubt about it. I'm not trying to knock that. I just think, the number two team's probably going to be a little bit more consistent in terms of their scoring. But if you want to tell me that this team has the highest upside of any team we've seen, I won't disagree with you, because I think that's where you can win titles, is with upside. So, and I think this team has it in spades. It's hard to argue any other team having higher upside than this one. Especially as these younger players start to, continue to round into form, get more touches within their respective teams. It's just, I mean, it's loaded with talent, no doubt about it.
All right, Chris, let me give you the 12 through 1 last time. At 12, we got Zen Q7. 11 is Bose on Kells. 10 is Ja 817. 9 is Steel Texan. 8 is Captain Ted. 7 is Bigger Dunk. 6 is Cabo Bum. 5 is J Maya. 4 Barber D. 3 is Barry 587. Dipitom at 2 and Borgier at 1. And we're going to sign off for the night, Chris. It's a fun league. This was awesome to look at. I kind of like looking at him a couple weeks into the season, see where it's at, see where my thoughts differ from kind of what the product has looked like so far. So remember to go pick up Jerome Ford on any waiver wires that he may be on. Go get yourself some Matt Breida tonight and enjoy the rest of your evening. Good luck this year.